Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, with the Motor City Madmouth, and I am pleased to be joined by a special guest, Bryce Weiler. Before I get into Bryce, I want to go over some background and give you the purpose of the show. First of all, the purpose of this show, folks, before Thanksgiving is to inspire. If you are not inspired by this show, shame on you, okay? And this show will be titled Broadcasting with a Disability. As we go on a little bit further, you'll understand the meaning of that title. So meanwhile, I'm going to go over a little bit of background with Bryce. Okay. He's been a color analyst for 150 games. He will work with the University of Evansville Athletics, New Britain Bees out of the Atlantic League and the minor league baseball, the Akron Rubber Ducks, the AA affiliate of the Cleveland Guardians, the Evansville Otters of the Frontier League, which is an independent minor league, Western Illinois Sports. And last, we got the University of Texas San Antonio. You did one game with men's basketball as a color commentator. With that said, Bryce, I want you to actually go ahead and talk about the story behind the one game with the University of Texas San Antonio. When you told it to me earlier, I was pretty intrigued by it.
Well, hi, Scott. Thank you so much for having me on your show. How I got to do the game with Texas San Antonio men's basketball was I was attending a training program in Chicago for individuals who are blind, and I was trying to find college basketball teams to speak to in Chicago. So Texas San Antonio's men's basketball team was playing at Illinois Chicago in November 2016. Their head coach had just taken over, Steve Henson, who was on Lon Kruger's Oklahoma staff, and Oklahoma had just went to the Final Four in 2016 with Buddy Hield. And I emailed Coach Henson, asked him if I could give a speech to their team, and if he would mind if I commentated their game when they played in Chicago. And Coach Henson gave me the opportunity to speak to the Texas San Antonio basketball team before they played at Illinois Chicago. And then I was able to commentate the game with their football and radio play-by-play broadcaster, Andy Everett, who does a great job creating visual pictures for me of the game. And I still listen to all of Andy's broadcasts, both football and basketball.
Very good. That's a pretty neat story when you brought it up to me earlier. By all means, I think it's pretty cool that you had a chance to work at the University of Texas at San Antonio. All right, so Bryce, how are you able to analyze games being blind?
I analyze games by studying the style of the play-by-play broadcaster who I am commentating with. Also, when I'm commentating basketball, I will speak with each team's coach before the game. In addition, I will go out and shoot free throws on the court to figure out if the rim is loose or tight and how the ball is going to bounce off of the rim. When I'm commentating sports, whether it be baseball, basketball, soccer, or softball, it is very important to have a good crowd microphone. So in basketball, the microphone is most useful hooked on underneath the basket on the pad so that I can hear the ball hitting off the rim or swishing through the net. When I'm commentating baseball or softball, the crowd microphone is most useful by home plate, so I can hear the umpire call the pitch, a ball or a strike, or if the ball's in the dirt, so that I can better analyze what is going on.
Very good. All right, so talk about your work as a disability consultant.
Well, I've helped a wide range of companies to become more accessible for people of all disabilities. Some of those include EverFi, Latch, and Gray Television. Gray Television is one that is really interesting for me. I've been helping them to make their social media and their websites more accessible. I've also been giving speeches to really thank individuals in news for what they are doing and what they continue to do every day. Throughout the pandemic, people started to celebrate people more, such as individuals in the grocery stores or taxi drivers, Uber drivers. But the people who bring the news to us every day, they never really received any more credit, whether that was on radio or television newscasters or reporters. So I try to thank them for that and really share about ways that I can help them to create stories about people with disabilities. And then Latch is a company who puts apps onto doors in apartments and office buildings. So I'm helping them to become more accessible for people of all disabilities. And I'm really grateful for these opportunities that I've been given to help these companies to become more accessible.
Do you find yourself doing a lot of public speaking engagements?
I do give many speeches to companies. Typically, when I first start working with a company, I found that it's best for me to give a speech about my life, the obstacles that I've had to overcome, how I can help the company, and how the company as a whole needs to work closely when doing programs for people with disabilities, because companies often have a large range of departments: human resources, marketing, um, various other departments, and it's important to get all those departments working together as a cohesive group. And definitely my commentating of 150 games on the radio as a blind radio analyst has really helped me when I'm giving speeches or when I'm on podcasts such as yours, because I understand that every word that I put out is important, and it is hard to take words back sometimes. So it's always important to sit, think, and contemplate before you utter a sentence.
So tell us a little bit about Bryce Weiler. Let's get the, a bit more of a story about what you're all about, what you're trying to accomplish, and so forth. Because I know since I've been talking to you, there are a lot of interesting things that you've done over the years, but I want people to get an in-depth feel of what you're all about.
I grew up listening to college basketball on the radio, listening to Brian Barnhart commentating Fighting Illini football and basketball, and Don Fisher commentating Indiana Hoosiers football and basketball. And it was listening to those two broadcasters who really created a visual picture for me of the action taking place on the court or the field. And I really wanted to be able to experience sports, but since I am blind, I didn't really think that I would have that opportunity. But I became fortunate enough to become friends with the former University of Evansville Aces head men's basketball coach, Marty Simmons, who's now coaching men's basketball in the Ohio Valley Conference at Eastern Illinois University. Coach Simmons gave me the opportunity to sit on his Evansville men's basketball bench, and I went to the University of Evansville, studied sports management and sports broadcasting. And really, what the opportunity that Coach Simmons gave me was sitting on the basketball bench really changed my life and gave me the opportunity to experience sports. And now I just try to help people with disabilities be able to live their dreams, to find employment, and to get to do things that they've always dreamed about doing, just as I dreamed about being a part of a college basketball team, which I was able to do from 2010 through 2014, with Coach Simmons giving me that opportunity to sit on his basketball bench.
Are there any particular sports that you like to go ahead and broadcast the most?
I enjoy commentating women's athletics because the women's athletes and coaches really do not get the coverage they deserve. Soccer is always very challenging for me because there are so many players moving around on the field. So really understanding that. I really enjoy baseball and softball because those are the sports that I can really have the best picture of in my head and really understand what is going on with the 9 defensive players on the field. But every time that I'm given that opportunity by someone to let me commentate, I'm very grateful for that because I know that I may not always be able to have those opportunities.
When you're preparing for a broadcast, how much do you research a particular thing? Like for example, when I'm doing it, I have the benefit of press releases and media releases and things like that. Do you have such a thing going for you, or do you just mainly focus on just the game itself?
I read all of the information that I can find and I memorize it all in my head because the sounds of my fingers running over a sheet of braille can get picked up by the sensitive microphones. So I spend about 15 to 18 hours per game studying facts on both teams, memorizing information on the players, looking them up, learning facts about their life. Most importantly, studying the play by play broadcaster who I am commentating with so I can determine his or her style, because I will tailor my broadcast around what the broadcaster who's doing play by play does not do as much of. If he or she doesn't tell as many stories about the lives of players and coaches, then I'm going to tell more stories. If they struggle to track trends in the game, such as consecutive turnovers or how many times someone's knocked the ball out of bounds or various other trends, then I'll know that throughout the game, I'll really have to be paying attention to that and tracking trends so that I can bring that up in the broadcast. I want that broadcast to sound as great as it can be for the play-by-play broadcaster so that he or she can use that for their demo reels or for whatever they might need to. So when there's a big moment, I always give them that moment. And sometimes they kind of wonder why I don't jump over their call because they've had other analysts who have done that. But I know that it's important for me to give them that moment, and I'm just along for the broadcast.
Yeah, there's no question. The one thing about broadcasting, especially whether you're a play-by-play guy, Bryce, or you're a color analyst, stories is really what it's all about. And if you're on radio and you don't have the benefit of TV, then you better be able to make sure you're thoroughly prepared, because you don't know if you're going to have a game which is lopsided, or you don't know whether you're going to have a game that's close. And you've got to make sure that you have more than enough information to keep it real, or people will tune you out pretty quickly.
It's always very important just to be prepared and to really have facts on almost everything. And you may not use all of them, but if you don't have them and you need them, then you're just struggling to fill space, and people can tell that you're really just filling space.
Are there any specific, as a disability consultant, clients that you've worked with that stand out over your the course of doing this?
Well, I'm just grateful for any time that a company really gives me the opportunity to help them. It wouldn't be fair to pick one over another. I just really enjoy it when a company wants to let me help them, because there are more companies out there who I think I could help. And someone on the leadership team in the top 5 to 7 staff members, CEO, chief operating officer, things like that, they don't really find how I could assist them of interest. So they don't really improve what they do for people with disabilities. So making the website accessible, making social media accessible, doing give back programs where their staff goes out and helps people with disabilities to have experiences like I did with learning to shoot free throws and various other items. And if you don't get someone at the highest level of a company to be interested in these programs, then they're most likely not going to be done. So I'm just grateful every time that I find someone who wants to do that.
All right, so you talk about radio, TV. Is there any particular one you enjoy most?
As in broadcaster, commentating, or which?
Yeah, both.
Uh, I've never been on a television broadcast because that would be hard for me, because they allow the pictures to really tell the story. Radio broadcasters who I enjoy listening to would be Pat Hughes of the Chicago Cubs, who I grew up listening to, Brian Barnhart from Illinois, Don Fisher from Indiana. I really like Andy Everett from UTSA, Texas San Antonio, who I commentated with. He's not commentating games anymore, but Tom Benson, who commentated with me for over 60 broadcasts whenever I was a student at the University of Evansville, he really taught me how to analyze a game and really worked with me. So if it wasn't for Tom, I wouldn't have been able to make it through the 150 games that I've done so far in my life.
So you're saying these are the individuals that you've enjoyed working with the most? The ones that you just pointed
Well, so Tom and Andy are the only individuals that I've commentated with, and I also have listened to them as well. And then broadcasters who I've enjoyed listening to would be the other three: Brian Barnhart, Pat Hughes, and Don Fisher.
Gotcha. So you 2 guys you've worked with and then 3 you've listened to. I know the one
Yeah.
thing about broadcasters is, and I grew up as a kid idolizing Ernie Harwell. Ernie Harwell is like a mentor to me. And there's a lot of other people that I try to pattern a little bit, but you have to be your own self. Otherwise, you really don't have a prayer anyhow. But let's face the reality. It's like anything, Bryce, in life, you have to shadow people and develop your own niche, but you still want to take the best of what everybody has to offer and make it your own. So
I just always enjoy it when someone wants to give me that opportunity, and I'm going to make them sound as great as they can or as great as I can help them to be when they give me that opportunity to be on the radio, because I know that they might be using those clips for more jobs or for other things. And for me, I'm not really going to necessarily use the clips. I'm just grateful to be able to give back and to help people to understand sports better, because that's how I grew up learning about sports, was listening to the games on the radio.
are there any particular announcers that you idolize?
I mean, not really, I guess. I don't know. There's lots of broadcasters who I enjoy listening to. I suppose it's different because I've always known that I could never do play by play since I cannot see. So I really enjoy listening to the broadcasters because of how they create visual pictures in my head. But as far as idolizing and saying, I want to really be like them. I've never done that because I know that I can't do that. Just like I don't really have a favorite player in sports because I know that I cannot really play sports as well as someone who can see. And I've always just, really been grateful for broadcasters who really take the time to put in and to study their sport.
Yeah, I think there's no question that a lot of people have to realize, especially when you're a radio guy, the amount of work that goes in. I can tell you many years ago when I was working for the Detroit Monitor covering Lions games. And the thing that was so interesting was I would get to the Silverdome, the Pontiac Silverdome, Bryce, at like 8, 9 in the morning. And I wouldn't even leave until probably 8, 9 at night. So I spent my Sundays at the Silverdome covering Barry Sanders. And yeah, you have to realize that back in the day, my highlighter was a very busy utensil. But the average prep, I would think, takes about anywhere between probably 4 hours before, and of course I had the access to interviews. But the life of a broadcaster, sports media guy, Bryce, is at least 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on the event. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, but if you enjoy what you're doing, it's work you enjoy doing, and whatever line of work you're in, whether it's in sports or something else, you want to do the best job that you can. So however much time that you need to prepare for that job or to learn the necessary information in sports or in other lines of work, that's what somebody should do to be successful.
Oh, by all means, let's not kid ourselves. Okay, Bryce. Broadcasting isn't a 9 to 5 job, Monday through Friday, and you got Saturday and Sunday. You work anytime you have an assignment and you go out there and cover it to the best of your ability. And a lot of people can't do it. There's more to it than just going out there and doing play by play or just analyzing. You have to be very prepared. And the average fan out there or individual knows that if you're faking it, they'll know it pretty quickly.
People can definitely tell that. That's why it's important to have extra facts and other information ready for whatever broadcast you might be on radio or television.
So, is there anything that you want to tell the average individual about being disabled that they should take from this broadcast that you can inspire?
Just because you may ask someone with a disability for help and he or she might not want your help at that point in time, you should always ask somebody the next time because that person might really need your help. So often, when a person develops their disability partway through their life, they really struggle to accept help or to value that someone wants to help them, so they can be kind of rude or not necessarily the nicest about it. I've been blind my entire life, so I know the importance of having people there to help me or teach me how to shoot free throws or teach me how to navigate through a college campus. But someone who became blind partway through their life, he or she may not really value that as much, and they could be rude to someone. So just because someone with a disability might not want your help or might not be the nicest about it, continue to always ask someone. As far as employment goes, really giving people with disabilities that opportunity and accepting their differences, understanding how to accommodate them, and really being willing to learn what they need because they are a valuable part of your workforce and your company, and they're going to be very, very loyal to you for giving them that opportunity.
I've got two more questions I'm really curious about. Number one, I want to make sure I'm very clear on this point. Okay, Bryce, have you been blind your entire life?
I was born almost 4 months premature, and I could see for a little bit whenever I was in the hospital, but then due to too much light or too much oxygen, it caused the retinas in my eyes to detach. So I've been blind for almost my entire life, minus 3 days or so.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So let's talk about potentially, you obviously certainly have a passion to continue broadcasting. Why should people go out there and hire Bryce Weiler? I'm impressed because you have a lot of the fundamental values in terms of research, telling stories, and I think that those are key attributes. But let's just put it out there for everybody, okay, that's watching the show. Why should somebody hire Bryce Weiler?
I'm able to analyze the game. I'm also able to help the play-by-play broadcaster so that he or she can sound the best that they can. I won't step over their calls, and I will make the broadcast be as great as it can be. I will study up on both teams, try and speak with each team's coach, and really just make the broadcast be as fantastic as it can be, which every radio staff wants to have their broadcast be at the highest level possible.
When you're behind the microphone, Bryce, do you find that a lot of your play-by-play guys forget that you're even blind once you guys are in the flow of the game?
Sometimes they do forget, but that does not make it easy for me because sometimes I might need to analyze what happened, such as if a player is on third base and there's a fly ball hit into center field, and the play-by-play broadcaster, he or she may say that the center fielder catches the ball. But he didn't say if the center fielder ran back to catch the ball or if the center fielder took 5 steps back and then came charging in so that his momentum or power, his or her momentum or power, if you might be doing softball, if they took those steps in so they could get power behind the throw to home plate. So sometimes they forget it. Sometimes they just don't describe the play well enough. And then that makes it hard for me because I don't want to call them out on the radio, but then I don't know how to analyze that play.
Well, fair enough. Okay. Because obviously the whole idea is when you're behind on radio, nobody can see you anyway. So you have to kind of make sure that you guys are both in sync. Otherwise, people, the smart ones anyways, can detect that there's a problem. Just so you know, folks, my name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Manmouth. Glad to be joined by my special guest tonight, Bryce Weiler. This show here can be seen on our YouTube channel, the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. It doesn't cost you anything. You can also hear the audio version of this broadcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also you can find it over at www.southfloridatribune.com. And if you want to follow us on social media, by all means, go to our Twitter page at Tribune South. And then you can, we also post a broadcast there. I post them on my LinkedIn account. I also get them on Instagram. I try to get them anywhere I can. And my goal here with the network is to find the most inspiring stories. Our goal is to educate, inform, and inspire. And that's why I really am really happy to be joined by Bryce Weiler. So Bryce, as we wrap up this show, are there any closing thoughts?
I'm just grateful that you've had me on, Scott. I would love to help anyone, whether it be doing a broadcast or helping their company to do programs for people with disabilities, whether it be hiring people with disabilities for employment, helping to make their app or their website more accessible. I can share with them more about what I've done with the companies I've helped, EverFi, Latch, and Gray Television. I'd love to speak with anyone if they'd like to email me or search me on LinkedIn. Just search Bryce Weiler, BryceWeiler. I'm on LinkedIn. They could also email me at bweiler25@gmail.com, BWEILER25@gmail.com, BWEILER25@gmail.com.
Okay, well, there you go. That's how you can get a hold of Bryce Weiler. I got to tell you, Bryce, I've gotten to know you the last few weeks. You've inspired me then. You'll always continue to inspire anybody to pursue your dreams, regardless of what the disability is. And I can tell you right now, Bryce, I'm definitely rooting for you to do well. And I'm glad that we've had a chance to spend some time together this evening to hear the Bryce Weiler story. As I reiterated earlier, broadcasting with a disability. My name is Scott Morganoff. Once again, please be joined by Bryce Weiler. So Bryce, thanks so very much for being on the show tonight. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and keep up the good work and more power to you. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fans out there. I can tell you right now, I'm definitely one of your number one fans for sure.
Thank you so much, Scott, for supporting me and giving me the opportunity to share about what I'm trying to do to help people with disabilities to live their dreams and break down barriers.
Yeah, I want to point out one other thing, folks. If I just want to make sure we get it out there one more time. If you want to find us, our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. All of our shows are directly on there, as well as the other places that I mentioned. So on behalf of Bryce Weiler, my name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Manmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Have a good night, everybody, and thanks again, Bryce.